What has happened is that we have industrialized agriculture. We've moved, we've made it necessary to move food farther and farther and farther and farther. We've made sure, if you track the money, that people make money all up and down the food chain except farmers, processors, etc. That's where we've shaved it off. So we could make sure that we charge artificially low prices in the marketplace. And then there's the whole question, of course, of subsidies that one of the things that I think is happening in our talks about sustainable agriculture is that we have stopped, or we are stopping, the demonization of farmers. What we've had is farmers going toward what they thought could pay them, something they understood. So it's ended up with abominations like CAFOs and land like ours, highly erodible land in Kentucky, farmed as if it's the flat fields of Iowa, which also shouldn't be farmed like they're being farmed. We have managed, up until the Industrial Revolution, we had lived pretty well on thousands of years of stored fertility. We've managed to use it up. Let's see, I'm 56, in my father's lifetime, my father's 80. We've managed to just about undo it. I believe that industrial agriculture is in its death throes. I think it's brain dead, and it will end. I think it's inevitable. I think the change is coming. I feel like one of the things I'm doing, and everybody else is working on this, trying to make a better agriculture and a culture that will support better agriculture, is managing the change. I think the change is coming, and it's going to be unpleasant, or it could be more pleasant if we come up under what's happening now with a better thing, better economic systems. And I think we can do it. I think they can be smaller. I think in our area, the city of Louisville, our biggest city, could be not easily, strike that, could be fed by the landscape around it, shorten the supply line, make life better for the country people and the city people. I think one of the things we've got to work on is to stop thinking we have to convince everybody. I think we could put together some systems, and I think the producers program that I talk about all the time is an example of a system you could put in place and begin to move enough food, much shorter distances, but move enough so you could talk about fair prices, and that's where parity would come in. What is a fair price? Not a sky-high price, but certainly not a low price that means that farmers can't afford to think about the things we're now asking them to think about. And a lot of farmers have always thought about these things, but a lot haven't and couldn't afford to. Who was the Secretary of Agriculture that Daddy debated? Earl Butz. Earl Butz was the big get big or get out guy. He was the free your hands from digging in the soil, live like an executive. But I believe that's an extension of an attitude toward physical work, toward country people. I think that we're going to have to go a long way to get rid of it. I think we have allowed what is precious to be stolen, degraded, ruined. We're doing things in Kentucky now that I can't imagine how long it will take to repair. I mean, knocking down a mountain for the coal that's in it, that's only value is in the split second it burns. So you take away what is precious and beautiful and makes life worth living for a second. And I believe industrial agriculture is mining. So I think the analogy is a fair one. I think the way people have been pushed and encouraged to farm is mining. It puts back nothing and takes out everything. If something, they needed backup. The Monsanto, Cargill, etc., needed backup for their plans, and they got it. They were legitimized by the land-grant universities. At this point, I believe that the land-grant universities and politicians have all been bypassed by corporations. So, and the land-grant universities are spouting the same thing. I was told by a generational farmer in Henry County, probably 10 years ago or so, I was talking about the need to preserve topsoil. Something that seems obvious, and he said, well, we don't have to worry about that. We can put whatever, we can invent topsoil. We can make topsoil. He was a graduate of the University of Kentucky School of Agriculture. He'd been told this stuff. So, I mean, you just go to any school and look at the names on the buildings. It'll tell the story. If land-grant universities that are scattered all over this country had in fact had the best interest of farmers at heart, so if they have hearts, we would have more farmers. We would have thriving farm economies, but we don't. They have been implicit in the destruction of pretty good agriculture scattered around in little places around this country. And I believe they have been used by large corporations, huge corporations, the scientists have been bought. The research tells the large corporation what it needs to hear, and then if it's whatever the chemical is unleashed on the countryside, and it's the new thing that's going to save us all, make sure that we have enough food for everybody, etc. And I believe if the land-grant universities had worked the way they were supposed to work, we would have differentiated good farm communities, land-conserving communities scattered all over this country. Because what the land-grant university has started to do is to throw out the same. People farm in Henry County, or they have been told they can farm in Henry County the same way they can farm in Iowa, the same way they can farm in Washington, given that the weather's different. It's as if farming can just be applied to a place, the same kind of farming. We know this is not true. I guess my question is, do they know it's not true? Do they know that they're not telling the truth? I don't know. I don't know. I've seen some evidence that they do know. I've also seen some evidence that they're not just not thinking. There's a big difference in, I think people can get too comfortable. They get in these land-grant universities and they're safe and they do the work they're supposed to do. They work on one thing. They work on the wheat seed. So when they make a mistake, the mistake is big and people suffer. The land suffers. Rural America shrinks a little more. And then we go to the next fix. Their gift to small farming seems to me to have been kind of bubbles, like ostriches and emus and interesting little pop-ups that nobody knows the market for, nobody knows anything about them, they're not culturally correct, they're It's a mystery to me. It really is a mystery to me. The people who work in land-grant universities are citizens of some place, and they have to have you would think they would have the local affections toward some place, but it appears that that can be taught out of you. And so.
That says they've actually promoted industrial agriculture to the demise of the rural farmer. Can you tell me that?
I'm supposed to say exactly that?
Something like that?
They have pushed upon farmers a way of farming that has meant we've lost farmers, and we've lost topsoil, and we have polluted, and we have well, it's been the destruction of rural America, and the destruction again of land conserving communities. So the question of who they serve seems to me to be very clear. I don't think you have to wonder at all.